Subscribe to Cheating Tales Lab. Now let's begin. The fluorescent lights of Cedar Grove Elementary flickered as Thomas Murray watched his daughter through the classroom window. Nora sat in the back row, her strawberry blonde hair falling forward as she hunched over her desk, deliberately avoiding eye contact with the other kids. She used to sit in front, hand always shooting up first. That was 3 months ago. Thomas had been a structural engineer for 15 years, building his career the same way he built everything else, methodically, with precision and care. He designed bridges that carried thousands of people safely across rivers, calculated load-bearing capacities down to the pound. Yet he couldn't figure out what was breaking his 10-year-old daughter from the inside out. The teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, appeared beside him in the hallway. "Mr. Murray, I'm glad you came early. Can we talk?" They walked to her classroom next door. She closed the door and pulled out a folder. "Nora's grades have dropped significantly, but that's not what concerns me most." She slid a drawing across the desk. A stick figure family, but the father figure was crossed out in heavy black marker, separated from the others by a dark wall. She drew this during free time yesterday. When I asked about it, she said her family would be happier if it was just 3 people instead of 4. Thomas felt his chest tighten. 3 people. Her mother, and her grandmother. "Mr. Murray, has something changed at home?" Everything and nothing, Thomas thought. Shelby's mother, Dixie Wright, had moved in 6 months ago after claiming she could no longer afford her apartment. What was supposed to be temporary had become permanent. The house in Riverside had enough space for bedrooms, a finished basement, but lately it felt like the walls were closing in. "My mother-in-law is staying with us," Thomas said carefully. "It's been an adjustment." Mrs. Rodriguez's expression shifted, something knowing passed across her face. "I see. Mr. Murray, I've been teaching for 20 years. I've seen what happens when children are caught in the middle of adult conflicts. Whatever is happening, please address it soon. Nora is withdrawing in ways that worry me deeply." That evening, Thomas came home to find Dixie in the kitchen, cooking dinner as if she owned the place. She was 62, with dyed auburn hair and a smile that never reached her cold blue eyes. She'd been attractive once, Thomas supposed, but bitterness had carved deep lines around her mouth. "You're late," she said, not looking up from the stove. "Shelby took Nora to her dance class. I stopped by Nora's school." "Oh." Dixie's tone was light, but her shoulders tensed. "Her teacher is concerned. Says she's withdrawing. Her grades are falling." Dixie turned, spatula in hand. "Well, Thomas, children pick up on stress. Maybe if you spent less time at work and more time at home, she'd feel more secure." It was a familiar tactic, deflection wrapped in concern. Thomas had learned not to engage. "Where's this dance class? Nora's never mentioned dance before. Shelby thought it would be good for her. Help her make friends." Dixie's smile was saccharine. "A mother knows what her daughter needs. I'm her father. I should have been consulted." "Of course. But you're so busy with your bridges and buildings. Shelby and I are just trying to fill the gaps." Thomas grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and headed upstairs to his home office, the only room in the house that still felt like his. He pulled out his phone and called Shelby. "Hey," she answered, her voice strained. "We're on our way back. Since when does Nora take dance?" A pause. "Mom suggested it." She thought. "Your mother suggested it, or you did?" "Thomas, don't start. Mom is just trying to help." "Help?" "Nora's teacher showed me a drawing today. Our daughter drew our family with me crossed out." Silence. "Then, she's just going through a phase." "A phase?" "Shelby, when was the last time we had a conversation that didn't include your mother's opinion?" "That's not fair. She's family. So am I. So is Nora. But lately, it feels like we're the outsiders in our own home." He heard Dixie's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. Shelby's tone shifted. "I can't talk about this now. We'll be home in 10 minutes. The call ended. Thomas sat at his desk, staring at the family photo from 3 years ago, before Dixie, before the distance that had grown between him and Shelby like a cancer. In the photo, Nora was grinning, gap-toothed and wild-haired, sitting on his shoulders at the county fair. She'd eaten so much cotton candy, she'd nearly thrown up on the Ferris wheel. They'd laughed about it for weeks. When had she stopped laughing with him? The front door opened downstairs. Thomas heard Shelby's voice, then Dixie's, then Nora's, soft, hesitant. He started down the stairs, but stopped halfway when he heard Dixie say, "See, sweetie?" Daddy's hiding in his office again. He doesn't want to spend time with us. Mom, that's not. Shelby started, but her protest was weak. It's okay, Nora. Some fathers just aren't built for family life. It's not your fault. Thomas descended the remaining stairs. Nora stood in the entryway in a pink leotard, her eyes downcast. When she saw him, something flickered across her face. Fear? Shame? Hey, sweetheart, Thomas said, crouching down to her level. How was dance? Nora glanced at Dixie before answering. Fine. Just fine? Did you learn anything cool? I guess. Dixie interjected. She's tired, Thomas. Long day. Why don't you let her rest? Thomas ignored her, keeping his focus on Nora. Want to show me what you learned? Maybe later, Nora mumbled, then hurried past him up the stairs. Thomas stood, turning to Shelby and Dixie. His wife looked exhausted, dark circles under her green eyes. She'd been beautiful when they met 12 years ago, confident, independent, working as a paralegal with dreams of law school. Now she looked like a shadow of herself. We need to talk, Thomas said. Alone. Dixie bristled. If this is about Nora, I have every right. Shelby. Upstairs. Now. His tone left no room for argument. Shelby followed him to their bedroom. He closed the door and leaned against it. What happened to us? Thomas asked quietly. Shelby sat on the edge of the bed, hands twisted in her lap. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Your mother has been here 6 months, and our daughter is falling apart. Our marriage is falling apart. And every time I try to address it, you defend her. She's my mother, Thomas. She has nowhere else to go. That's not true. She has a sister in Phoenix. She has friends. She chose to come here, and you chose to let her stay without discussing it with me. Shelby's face flushed. You're being cruel. She's alone. Dad died 2 years ago, and she's struggling. I understand grief, Shelby, but this isn't grief. This is something else. Thomas moved closer, his voice softening. I love you. I love Nora. But I feel like I'm losing both of you, and I don't know how to stop it. Tears welled in Shelby's eyes. For a moment, Thomas thought she might break through whatever wall had been built between them. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. A text from Dixie. I need to help Mom with dinner, she said, standing abruptly. We can talk about this later. She left before Thomas could respond. He sat on the bed they'd barely shared in months and stared at the ceiling, wondering when his home had become a battlefield where he was fighting a war he didn't know how to win. The next 2 weeks passed in a suffocating routine. Thomas tried to spend time with Nora, suggested Saturday morning breakfasts, movie nights, trips to the park. Each time, Dixie had already made plans. A grandmother-granddaughter spa day, a special shopping trip, a visit to the museum, always phrased as treats, as special bonding time. And Shelby allowed it, every single time. Thomas started documenting everything. As an engineer, he trusted data, evidence, patterns. He noted the times Dixie interrupted his conversations with Nora, the subtle comments that undermined him. Daddy's too busy for that. We shouldn't bother Daddy. He has important work. Daddy gets angry when we're too loud. He'd never gotten angry about noise. He'd built Nora a treehouse last summer, helped her catch fireflies, taught her to ride a bike. But those memories were being erased, rewritten in real time. On Thursday evening, Thomas came home early, hoping to surprise Nora. He parked in the garage and entered through the kitchen door, quiet on his feet. Voices drifted from the living room. Your daddy doesn't understand how special you are, Dixie was saying. He's always working, always distracted. But Grandma and Mommy, we see you. We love you. But Daddy works hard for us, Nora's small voice replied. Oh, sweetie. He works because he wants to, not because he has to. If he really loved you, he'd make time. He'd choose you over his job. Thomas stood frozen in the hallway. Does he wish I wasn't born? Nora asked, her voice breaking. Now, I didn't say that. But sometimes adults have children because they think they should, not because they really want to. And then they realize how much work it is, and they regret it. Dixie, that's enough. Shelby's voice, finally showing some steel. I'm just being honest with her, Shelby. Better she knows now than gets her heart broken later. Thomas stepped into the room. All three of them startled. Nora's face went pale. Nora, go to your room, Thomas said, his voice deadly calm. Thomas, Shelby started. Now Nora. His daughter fled. Thomas waited until he heard her door close upstairs before turning to Dixie. What the hell do you think you're doing? Dixie stood, drawing herself up to full height. I'm protecting my granddaughter from the pain of having an absent father. Absent? I live here. I work to provide for this family. I love my daughter more than anything in this world. Then why is she crying herself to sleep every night? Why does she flinch when you come into a room? The accusation hit like a physical blow. She flinches because you've spent 6 months poisoning her against me. That's ridiculous, Dixie scoffed. I've done nothing but love her. Thomas turned to Shelby. You heard what she said. Tell me you heard it. Shelby looked between them, torn and miserable. Mom was just, she didn't mean. Didn't mean what? Didn't mean to tell our daughter that I regret her existence. You're twisting my words, Dixie said. Shelby, you see what he's doing, don't you? He's trying to turn you against me. No, Thomas said. I'm trying to save my family from you. Your family. Dixie's laugh was bitter. Shelby and Nora are my family. You're just the man who married in. And frankly, I told Shelby 12 years ago she could do better. Mom, stop, Shelby pleaded weakly. But Dixie was on a roll. You've never been good enough for my daughter. You're boring, you're emotionally unavailable. You're more interested in your calculations than in your own child. Shelby deserves better. Nora deserves better. Thomas felt something cold settle in his chest. This wasn't just meddling. This was intentional, calculated destruction. Get out of my house. It's Shelby's house too. Shelby, tell him I'm staying. All eyes turned to Shelby. She stood there, silent, her face crumbling. The silence stretched until Thomas couldn't bear it anymore. Fine, he said. I'll leave. He grabbed his keys and walked out, got in his car, and drove aimlessly through Riverside's quiet streets. His phone rang. Shelby. He sent it to voicemail. It rang again. Again. 5 times before she stopped trying. Thomas ended up at the office, sitting alone in the dark conference room overlooking the city. He'd built his career on understanding how structures hold together, how to calculate the exact point where stress becomes too much and something collapses. His family was at that point. Past it, maybe. His phone buzzed. A text from Shelby. Please come home. We need to talk. Another text, this one from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Murray, this is Mrs. Rodriguez. Nora was very upset today. She asked me if fathers can stop loving their daughters. I'm worried. Please call me. Thomas stared at his phone, rage and helplessness warring inside him. Then he pulled up his contacts, scrolled to his lawyer, a college friend named Miguel Baker who'd helped him with the house purchase. It was 10 p.m., but Miguel answered on the 3rd ring. Thomas? Everything okay? I need to know my options, Thomas said. My marriage might be ending, and I need to protect my daughter. Tell me everything. Thomas did. Miguel listened without interrupting, and when Thomas finished, Miguel was quiet for a long moment. First thing tomorrow, Miguel said, we document everything. Every instance of parental alienation, every undermining comment. We build a case. Because if this goes to custody court, you're going to need ammunition. I don't want custody court. I want my family back. I know. But hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's what I'm here for. Thomas thanked him and ended the call. He sat in the darkness until midnight, then drove home. The house was dark except for one light, Nora's room. He could see her shadow moving behind the curtains, too late for a 10-year-old to still be awake. He let himself in quietly. Dixie's bedroom door was closed. Shelby was asleep in their bed, or pretending to be. Thomas climbed the stairs to Nora's room and knocked softly. Come in, came the small voice. Nora sat on her bed, surrounded by stuffed animals, her eyes red from crying. Thomas sat beside her, and for a moment, neither spoke. Daddy, Nora finally whispered. Do you love me? Thomas pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. More than anything in the entire world. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Nothing will ever change that. Grandma said. Grandma is wrong. Completely, totally wrong. I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving that to you, okay? Nora nodded against his chest. They sat like that until she fell asleep, and Thomas carefully tucked her in. As he stood to leave, he noticed her backpack by the door, partially open. Inside was a notebook, and on the visible page, written in her careful handwriting, ways to be less trouble for Daddy. The list destroyed him. He closed her door quietly and went downstairs to the kitchen, where he found Shelby waiting, her face drawn and pale. We need to talk, she said. Yes, Thomas agreed. We do. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd shared thousands of meals, where where they'd told Nora she was going to be a big sister before the miscarriage, where they'd laughed and planned and built a life. Now it felt like a negotiating table. "Your mother has to go," Thomas said without preamble. Shelby's hands wrapped around a cold mug of tea. "She has nowhere to go." "That's not true, and we both know it. She has options. What she doesn't have is the right to destroy our daughter's sense of self-worth. She's not." "Stop. Please stop defending her." I found a list in Nora's backpack. "Ways to be less trouble for Daddy. Our daughter thinks she's a burden to me because your mother has spent 6 months telling her exactly that." Shelby's face crumpled. "I didn't know it had gotten that bad. Because you haven't been paying attention. Or you have been, and you've chosen your mother over us. That's not fair, isn't it? Every time I've raised concerns, you've dismissed them. Every time I've tried to set boundaries with Dixie, you've undermined me. I'm not the enemy here, Shelby, but I'm being treated like one in my own home." Shelby wiped her eyes. "Mom has been through so much. After Dad died, she was so lost. I couldn't just abandon her. I never asked you to abandon her. I asked you to set healthy boundaries. There's a difference." Thomas leaned forward. "But this isn't just about boundaries anymore. This is about Nora's well-being. Your mother is engaging in parental alienation, and if it continues, I will take legal action." Shelby's head snapped up. "You'd take Nora from me?" "No. I'd protect Nora from toxic behavior, wherever it comes from. I love you, Shelby. I've loved you since the day we met. But I love our daughter more, and I will burn down everything to keep her safe, including this marriage, if that's what it takes." The words hung in the air, brutal in their honesty. Shelby stared at him, and Thomas saw the moment she truly understood how serious this was. "What do you want me to do?" she asked quietly. "I want you to choose. Us or her. There's no middle ground left. She's my mother, and Nora is your daughter. Your mother is an adult who can take care of herself. Nora is a child who is being emotionally abused, and it has to stop now." Shelby stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple. If I ask her to leave, she'll never forgive me. If you don't ask her to leave, Nora may never forgive you. And neither will I." Thomas stood too, moving to block Shelby's pacing. "I met with a lawyer tonight. I'm prepared to file for divorce and primary custody. I don't want to. I want to save this family. But I need you to fight for it too." Shelby's eyes widened. "You're serious. Deadly serious. I'll give you 1 week to make a decision. Either Dixie leaves, or I do. And if I leave, I'm taking Nora with me. You can't just watch me. I have documentation of parental alienation. I have witnesses, teachers, neighbors who've seen what's been happening. Miguel says I have a strong case. But I'd rather not go to court. I'd rather have my wife back." Shelby sank into her chair, looking small and defeated. "I don't know if I can do this." "Then you've already made your choice," Thomas said sadly. He moved toward the stairs, then stopped. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow I'm working from home, so I can spend time with Nora. Figure out where your loyalties lie, Shelby. Because this ends one way or another, and soon." He left her sitting in the dark kitchen and went upstairs. But instead of the guest room, he checked on Nora one more time. She was still asleep, one hand curled under her chin, looking peaceful for the first time in weeks. Thomas made a silent promise to her sleeping form. "Whatever it takes, I'll keep you safe." He didn't know how prophetic those words would become, or how soon he'd be tested. Because 3 days later, everything would shatter in ways he couldn't have predicted, and the real battle for his daughter's life would begin. Friday morning, Thomas woke early and made Nora's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like stars. He heard her door open and small feet padding down the hallway. "Daddy." Nora appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You're home. I'm working from home today. Thought we could spend time together. Just us." Something flickered across her face. Hope, quickly tamped down by uncertainty. "Won't you get in trouble?" "Nope. I'm the boss of my own schedule." He flipped a pancake. "How about after breakfast? We work on that treehouse extension you wanted?" "Really?" The hope broke through this time, genuine and bright. "Really? Unless you'd rather do something else." "No. The treehouse sounds perfect." Shelby appeared in the doorway, looking haggard. She'd been up all night, Thomas could tell. Dixie was nowhere to be seen, probably still asleep. "Morning," Shelby said tentatively. "Morning. Want some pancakes?" "Ah, yes. Thank you." They ate breakfast with careful politeness, Nora chattering about the treehouse plans. For a brief moment, they felt like a normal family again. Then Dixie's voice called down from upstairs. Shelby? Shelby, I need you. Shelby's shoulders tensed. She looked at Thomas, then at Nora, conflict written across her face. Go ahead, Thomas said quietly. We'll clean up. After Shelby left, Nora helped Thomas clear the dishes. Daddy? Why is Grandma always mad at you? Thomas chose his words carefully. Sometimes adults disagree about things. It doesn't mean anyone is bad. But she says you don't love us. Thomas knelt down to Nora's level, taking both her hands. Listen to me very carefully, sweetheart. I love you and your mother more than anything in this world. That will never, ever change. If anyone tells you different, they're lying. Okay. Nora nodded slowly. Okay. Now, how about we go build that treehouse extension before it gets too hot? They spent the morning in the backyard, measuring and cutting wood. Thomas showed Nora how to use the level, how to drive a nail straight. She was good at it, careful and precise. They worked together, and Thomas felt the distance between them begin to close. Around noon, Shelby brought out sandwiches and lemonade. Dixie was with her, her expression sour. Isn't this cozy? Dixie said. Playing carpenter while there's work to be done inside. We're bonding, Thomas said evenly. Something we haven't done enough of lately. Yes. Well, Nora needs to get ready. We have plans this afternoon. No, Thomas said. Nora and I have plans. You'll need to reschedule. Dixie's face reddened. Excuse me. You heard me. Nora and I are spending the day together. Shelby, are you going to let him talk to me like this? Shelby looked between them, and Thomas held his breath. This was her choice, right here, right now. Mom, Shelby said slowly, maybe Thomas is right. They should have some time together. It wasn't exactly taking his side, but it wasn't taking Dixie's either. Progress, maybe. Dixie's expression turned ugly. I see. Well, don't come crying to me when he disappoints you both. Again. She stormed back into the house. Nora looked worried. Is Grandma mad at me? No, baby, Shelby said, kneeling down. Grandma's just having a hard time adjusting to things. It's not your fault. Thomas and Shelby's eyes met over Nora's head. Something passed between them, a fragile understanding, maybe, the beginning of an alliance. They spent the afternoon together, all three of them. They finished the treehouse extension, then Nora wanted to show her mother everything Thomas had taught her. Shelby climbed up into the treehouse, and they sat there, legs dangling, pointing out birds and clouds. For the first time in months, Thomas felt hope. That evening, after Nora was asleep, Shelby found Thomas in his office. I talked to Mom today, she said. Told her she needs to find her own place. Gave her 60 days. Thomas stood, hardly daring to believe it. You did. She didn't take it well. But you were right. I've been choosing her over you and Nora, and it stops now. Tears streamed down Shelby's face. I'm so sorry, Thomas. I let things get so bad. I was so afraid of losing her that I almost lost everything that actually matters. Thomas pulled her into his arms. We'll fix this. Together. They held each other, and for the first time in months, Thomas felt like they might actually make it through this. He didn't know that Dixie, standing in the hallway outside his office, had heard every word. Didn't know that rage was burning in her cold blue eyes, that she was already planning her revenge. Because if Dixie Wright couldn't have her daughter and granddaughter to herself, she'd make damn sure Thomas couldn't either. And she knew exactly how to hurt him most. The weekend passed in cautious optimism. Dixie stayed mostly in her room, emerging only for meals, her silence more unsettling than her usual comments. Thomas and Shelby took Nora to the zoo on Saturday, then to her favorite ice cream place. They watched her smile return, heard her laugh again. Sunday night, as Thomas tucked Nora into bed, she threw her arms around his neck. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. I'm sorry I believed Grandma. About you not wanting me. Thomas's throat tightened. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing at all. That night, Thomas and Shelby talked for hours, really talked, for the first time in months. They made plans, couples therapy, family therapy for Nora, a timeline for Dixie's departure. It felt like building something new on damaged foundation, but they were trying. I'll tell Mom tomorrow that 60 days is actually 30, Shelby said. The sooner she's gone, the better. Are you sure? I don't want to pressure you. I'm sure. I've been her emotional support animal for too long. It's time I put my actual family first. Thomas kissed her, And for the first time in months, it felt real. They fell asleep in each other's arms, hopeful for the first time in months. Monday morning, Thomas woke to Shelby shaking him. Thomas, wake up. He sat up, groggy. What's wrong? Nora's not in her room. Ice flooded his veins. He checked his phone, 6:30 a.m. Maybe she's downstairs. They both rushed down. The kitchen was empty. Living room empty. Dixie's bedroom door stood open. She was gone too, her bedmate. Dixie's car is in the driveway, Shelby said, checking through the window. Thomas ran back upstairs, checking the bathroom, his office, the guest room. All empty. Then he noticed Nora's backpack was missing. And on her desk, weighted down by her favorite stuffed rabbit, was a folded piece of paper. With shaking hands, Thomas picked it up and read. Dear Daddy, I'm sorry I ruined your life. Grandma explained everything to me. How you and Mommy were happy before I was born. How having me made everything hard. How you have to work so much because of me. How you pretend to love me, but really wish you could have your old life back. I heard you and Mommy talking about making Grandma leave. I know it's because of me. I don't want to be the reason your family breaks apart. I'm going somewhere I won't be trouble anymore. Please don't look for me. You'll be happier without me. I love you even though Grandma says you don't love me back. Nora. The paper fell from Thomas's hands. Shelby picked it up, read it, and her face went white. Oh God. Oh God. Thomas, where is she? Thomas was already calling Nora's phone. It went straight to voicemail. He tried Dixie's number. Same thing. When did you last see her? Thomas demanded. Last night, when we said goodnight. Thomas, you don't think Dixie. Where would she go? Your mother. Where would she take her? I don't. Maybe her old apartment? But the new tenants. Thomas was already moving, grabbing his keys. Call the police. Now. Report them both missing. Thomas, maybe we should. Now, Shelby. She flinched, but pulled out her phone. Thomas ran to his car, his mind racing through possibilities. Dixie wouldn't hurt Nora physically, would she? Or had she manipulated Nora into running away alone? How long had they been gone? He drove to Dixie's old apartment complex across town, breaking every speed limit. The building looked the same as it had months ago when he'd helped Dixie move out. He ran to her old unit, second floor, corner apartment. The windows were dark. He pounded on the door anyway. A young man answered, clearly just woken up. Can I help you? I'm looking for an older woman and a young girl. They would have come here this morning. Haven't seen anyone, man. Just moved in last month. Thomas's phone rang. Shelby. The police are sending someone to the house. They need a recent photo of Nora. Thomas, I'm scared. I'm checking other places. Call everyone. Your mother's friends. Anyone she might go to. I already did. No one's seen her. Thomas, what if? She didn't finish the sentence. Neither of them wanted to voice what they were thinking. Thomas spent the next hour driving to every place he could think of. The park where Dixie took Nora, the library, the mall. Nothing. He called Miguel. File a missing persons report for both of them, Miguel advised. And Thomas, start preparing yourself for the worst. What do you mean? Parental kidnapping is a real thing, especially by grandparents. If Dixie has convinced Nora to go with her willingly, this gets complicated fast. Thomas's grip on the steering wheel tightened. She left a suicide note, Miguel. Silence. Then what? Nora's note. It reads like a suicide note. Going somewhere I won't be trouble anymore. Jesus Christ, Miguel, what if Dixie pushed her to? Don't go there yet. Kids say dramatic things. But you need to find her fast. I'm calling in some favors. Get a private investigator on this. Thomas thanked him and kept driving, kept searching. He called Nora's phone every 5 minutes, left voicemail after voicemail. Sweetheart, wherever you are, please call me. You're not in trouble. I love you. Please just let me know you're safe. At 10:47 a.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Thomas Murray? A woman's voice, professional. Yes, who is this? This is Riverside General Hospital. Sir, your daughter is in the ICU. You need to come immediately. The world tilted. What happened? Is she? Sir, please come to the hospital. 4th floor, ICU. Ask for Dr. Patterson. The call ended. Thomas was already turning the car around, dialing Shelby with shaking hands. They found her. Hospital. Meet me there. He didn't wait for her response. He pushed the car to 90 miles per hour, running red lights, not caring about anything except getting to his daughter. The 15-minute drive took 8. He abandoned his car in the emergency lane and ran inside, not stopping until he reached the 4th floor. A doctor met him, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes. "Mr. Murray? I'm Dr. Patterson. Your daughter was brought in by ambulance about an hour ago. What happened? Where is she?" "She's stable now, but it was close. A jogger found her on the Old Mill Bridge around 9 this morning. She'd climbed up on the railing." Thomas felt his knees buckle. Dr. Patterson steadied him. The jogger talked her down, but Nora was hypothermic and in shock. "We're treating her now. She keeps asking for you." "Can I see her?" "Yes. But Mr. Murray, I need to warn you. She's very fragile, both physically and emotionally. We've called in a psychiatric consultant." Dr. Patterson led him to a room with glass walls. Inside, Nora lay in a bed that looked enormous around her small frame. She was connected to monitors and 4 in her arm. Her face was pale, her eyes closed. Thomas stepped inside, and her eyes opened. "Daddy." He was at her bedside in 2 strides, taking her hand carefully. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Shoo, you have nothing to be sorry for," Grandma said. Nora's voice was barely a whisper. "She said you'd be happier if I." Thomas felt rage and grief were inside him. He pushed both down, focusing only on his daughter. Grandma was lying. Do you understand me? She was lying about everything. But she said, I know what she said, and none of it was true. Not one word. "You are the best thing in my life. The very best thing. I love you more than breathing." Nora sobbed, and Thomas held her as carefully as he could, mindful of the 4 and monitors. "I got so confused," she cried. "Grandma kept saying things, and Mommy didn't stop her, and I thought maybe it was true." "Where is your grandmother now?" "I don't know. She drove me to the bridge this morning. Said we were going somewhere special. But when we got there, she told me to get out of the car. She said this was the best place for me to go. That you'd understand. That you'd be relieved." Thomas's blood turned to ice. "She brought you to the bridge?" Nora nodded against his chest. "She said jump, and all the pain would stop. That I wouldn't be a burden anymore. But I couldn't do it. I was so scared. I stood on the railing, and I kept thinking about you teaching me to ride my bike, and reading bedtime stories, and building the treehouse. And I couldn't." "Thank God," Thomas breathed. "Thank God you couldn't." "The jogger lady came and talked to me. Said I should come down. Grandma got mad and drove away. Left me there. Then the jogger called 911. Thomas looked up to see Shelby standing in the doorway, her face ashen. She'd heard everything. "Where's my mother?" Shelby asked, her voice hollow. "Gone," Thomas said. "She left Nora on that bridge to die." Shelby swayed, grabbing the door frame. A nurse appeared, helping her to a chair. Dr. Patterson stepped into the room. "Mr. and Mrs. Murray, I need to inform you that we're legally required to report this incident. Child Protective Services has been notified, and the police want to speak with you both." "Good," Thomas said, his voice hard. "Because I want Dixie Wright arrested for attempted murder." Shelby made a sound like a wounded animal. Thomas looked at her and saw his own rage reflected in her eyes. "I'll testify against her," Shelby said. "I'll tell them everything. Thomas, I'm so sorry. I almost let her kill our daughter." "Not now," Thomas said, his focus on Nora. "Right now, we focus on her." 2 police officers arrived within the hour. Thomas gave a statement, showing them Nora's note, explaining the months of psychological abuse, the pattern of parental alienation. When he described Dixie bringing Nora to the bridge and telling her to jump, one officer's hand clenched around his pen. "We've issued a warrant for Dixie Wright," the officer said. "Reckless endangerment of a minor, child abuse, and we're considering attempted murder depending on what the DA wants to pursue." "Where is she?" Thomas demanded. "We're looking. Her car was found abandoned at a gas station 15 miles from the bridge. We have units checking her known associates." After the police left, Thomas sat with Nora while Shelby made phone calls, to her job, to Thomas's office, to everyone who needed to know they'd be unavailable for the foreseeable future. A psychiatric counselor named Dr. Chun came in the evening, spent an hour talking with Nora while Thomas and Shelby waited outside. When Dr. Chun emerged, her expression was grave. Nora's been subjected to systematic psychological abuse. The grandmother's tactics are textbook manipulation, isolating the child, undermining the parent-child bond, creating a distorted reality. It's going to take time to undo that damage. "What do we do?" Shelby asked. Intensive therapy for Nora. Family therapy for all of you. Consistency, patience, and a lot of love. The good news is, Nora is resilient. And she clearly has a strong bond with her father that even months of manipulation couldn't completely destroy. That's what saved her life today. That night, Thomas refused to leave Nora's side. The hospital brought in a cot, and he slept beside her bed. Every time he woke, he checked to make sure she was still breathing, still there. In the early morning hours, Nora woke. "Daddy, I'm here. Will Grandma come back?" "No. I promise you, she will never come near you again." "What if she's right, though? What if I really am too much trouble?" Thomas stood, moved to her bedside. "Look at me, Nora. You are not trouble. You are precious. You are wanted. You are loved beyond measure. Your grandmother is sick, and she said terrible, untrue things. But I'm going to spend every day proving to you how much you matter." "Okay." Nora searched his face in the dim light. Whatever she saw there made her relax. "Okay. Get some rest. I'll be right here when you wake up." As Nora drifted back to sleep, Thomas made a silent vow. Dixie Wright would pay for what she'd done. However long it took, whatever he had to do, she would face justice. Nora was released from the hospital after 3 days of observation. The doctors wanted to ensure she was physically stable and that her mental state had improved. Dr. Chun recommended an intensive outpatient therapy program, and Thomas enrolled Nora immediately. Shelby had moved Dixie's belongings into storage, changed the locks, and called a lawyer about filing a restraining order, though that was complicated by the fact that Dixie had vanished. The police were still searching, but she seemed to have gone underground. "She'll surface eventually," Detective Morrison told Thomas during one of many updates. "They always do. We've alerted other jurisdictions, flagged her credit cards, put out a bolo. It's just a matter of time." But time was something Thomas felt slipping away. Every day Dixie remained free was a day she could hurt someone else's family. Every day was a day Nora asked if Grandma might come back. The first therapy session was difficult. Nora sat in Dr. Chen's office, clutching Thomas's hand, and could barely speak. But Dr. Chen was patient, worked at Nora's pace. By the third session, Nora was opening up about the things Dixie had said, the way she'd made Nora feel invisible and unwanted. "Your grandmother was wrong," Dr. Chun told Nora gently. "Your father loves you. You can see it in how he looks at you, how he's here every single day. That's real. What your grandmother told you was her sickness, not the truth." Slowly, painfully, Nora began to heal. Thomas took a leave of absence from work, spending every moment with her. They did homework together, worked on the treehouse, watched movies. Shelby joined family therapy sessions where they all learned to communicate better, to rebuild trust. One evening, 2 weeks after the hospital, Nora asked, "Daddy, why did Grandma hate you so much?" Thomas had wondered the same thing. He'd asked Shelby, who'd finally opened up about her mother's history. "Your grandma never got over losing control," Shelby had explained. "After my dad died, I was all she had. When I married Thomas, when we had you, she felt like she was losing me. So she tried to destroy what we had so she could have me back. It was twisted logic, but it made a sick kind of sense." To Nora, Thomas said, "Some people have so much hurt inside them that they hurt others. It doesn't excuse what she did, but maybe it explains it. Will I be like her?" The question broke Thomas's heart. "No, sweetheart. You're kind and brave and good. You're nothing like her." 3 weeks after the bridge incident, Detective Morrison called. "We found her." Thomas's pulse quickened. "Where?" "Phoenix, staying with her sister. We're coordinating with Arizona police to bring her back for prosecution. Thought you'd want to know. When? Hopefully within the week. The DA is building the case." With Nora's statement, the note, the hospital records, and witness testimony from the jogger who saved her, it's solid. Thomas thanked him and hung up. When he told Shelby, she surprised him by crying, not from sadness, but relief. "It's really over," she said. "She can't hurt us anymore." But it wasn't over. Not quite. Because 5 days later, Dixie's lawyer called. She was fighting extradition, claiming she'd done nothing wrong, that Thomas had brainwashed Shelby and Nora against her. She wanted visitation rights with her granddaughter. Miguel exploded when he heard. "She's delusional. No judge will grant that. Can she drag this out?" Thomas asked. "She can try, but she'll lose. The evidence is overwhelming." Still, the thought of Dixie fighting, of Nora potentially having to testify in court, made Thomas sick. He lay awake at night, thinking of ways to end this faster, to protect his daughter from more trauma. Then an idea formed. Dark, perhaps illegal, but effective. He called his old college roommate, Chuck Rich, who'd gone into investigative journalism. I need everything you can find on Dixie Wright. And I mean everything. Chuck was silent for a moment. Thomas, what are you planning? To make sure she can never hurt my family again. Can you help or not? Give me a week. 6 days later, Chuck sent a file. Thomas opened it and felt his eyebrows raise. Dixie's life was a trail of destruction. 2 previous husbands before Shelby's father, both divorces citing emotional abuse. A restraining order from one ex, multiple jobs lost due to conflicts with co-workers. A pattern of manipulation that went back decades. But the real gold was recent. Evidence that Dixie had been skimming money from Shelby's joint account with Thomas, small amounts at a time. Nearly $15,000 over 6 months. She was funding her own apartment the whole time, Miguel said when Thomas showed him. The sob story about being broke was a lie. Thomas felt the pieces click into place. He called the DA's office and shared the financial records. Then he called Chuck back. I want this story published. All of it. Her history, what she did to Nora, the pattern of abuse. Can you make that happen? Thomas, you sure about this? It'll be public. Nora will see it eventually. Nora deserves to know the truth. The whole truth. And Dixie Wright deserves to have her name attached to what she is, a child abuser. The article ran in the Riverside Tribune 3 days later. Grandmother's campaign of terror. How psychological abuse nearly cost a child her life. It was damning. Detailed. Sourced impeccably. Within hours, it had been picked up by state media. By the next day, it was national news. Dixie's lawyers stopped fighting extradition. She was brought back to Riverside in handcuffs, photographed by every news outlet. Her face was everywhere, the grandmother who'd tried to destroy her own family. The public court of opinion had convicted her before the trial even began. When the trial date was set, Thomas prepared Nora carefully. You might have to tell the judge what happened, but I'll be right there. And so will Mom. We'll protect you. Nora nodded, braver than any 10-year-old should have to be. I want to tell. I want everyone to know she lied. The trial was swift. Dixie's defense tried to paint her as a concerned grandmother, but the evidence was overwhelming. The note, the hospital records, the jogger's testimony that Dixie had told Nora to jump, then drove away. The financial fraud, the documented pattern of abuse. Nora took the stand on day 3. Thomas watched from the gallery, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles were white. But Nora spoke clearly, calmly, telling the truth with a strength that made him burst with pride. When asked if she loved her grandmother, Nora said, I thought I did. But Dr. Chun says love shouldn't hurt this much. Real love doesn't make you want to die. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts: child endangerment, child abuse, attempted murder, and financial fraud. At sentencing, the judge addressed Dixie directly. You betrayed the sacred trust between grandparent and grandchild. You weaponized a child's love against an innocent man. You manipulated, you lied, and when your scheme fell apart, you brought a 10-year-old to a bridge and told her to jump. I've seen many things in my career, but few as calculated and cruel as your actions. She sentenced Dixie to 15 years in prison. Thomas felt the weight he'd been carrying for months finally lift. When he looked at Shelby, she was crying. When he looked at Nora, she was holding her mother's hand, and she looked free. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Thomas made a brief statement. My daughter is the bravest person I know. She survived something no child should ever face. We're focusing now on healing, on being a family, on moving forward. Justice has been served. As they drove home, all 3 of them together in Thomas's car, Nora said, Daddy, can we work on the treehouse when we get home? Thomas met Shelby's eyes in the rearview mirror. She smiled, and he smiled back. Absolutely, Thomas said. In fact, I think it's time we build a second level. You're getting bigger, you'll need more room. Can we put in a slide? One that goes all the way to the ground. We can do whatever you want, sweetheart. They spent the rest of the drive planning the treehouse expansion, talking about normal things, being normal. Thomas knew the healing would take time. They still had family therapy. Nora still had nightmares sometimes. Shelby was working through her own guilt about not stopping her mother sooner. But they were together. They were safe. And Dixie Wright would spend the next 15 years behind bars. unable to hurt anyone. 6 months later, the treehouse was complete. 2 levels, a slide, a rope bridge connecting to a second tree, and a zip line Thomas had installed with Miguel's help. Nora hosted her first sleepover there with 3 friends from school, girls who'd stuck by her even when the news coverage made her famous in the worst way. Thomas and Shelby watched from the kitchen window as the girls laughed and screamed, being kids. "She's going to be okay," Shelby said softly. "Yeah," Thomas agreed. "We all are." Miguel stopped by with his wife, bringing beer and stories. They sat on the back deck, adults talking adult things while the kids played. It felt wonderfully ordinary. "How's the new project going?" Miguel asked. Thomas had started his own engineering firm, wanting more control over his time. "Good. Growing slowly, but that's fine. I like being able to set my own hours, be there for Nora." "Speaking of which," Miguel's wife said, "my sister's school is looking for someone to teach a workshop on engineering. Thought Nora might enjoy it." "I'll ask her," Thomas said. "She's been interested in building things lately. Wonder where she got that." They laughed. Normal conversation. Normal life. That night, after the sleepover girls had been picked up, Nora came to Thomas's office where he was reviewing blueprints. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Grandma will ever say she's sorry?" Thomas considered the question. Dixie had shown no remorse at trial, maintained she'd done nothing wrong. "I don't know, sweetheart. Some people can't admit when they're wrong. Dr. Chun says I can forgive her anyway, even if she doesn't say sorry. Not for her, but for me." "That's true. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger so it doesn't poison you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or letting her back into your life." Nora nodded slowly. "I don't think I'm ready to forgive her yet. Is that okay?" "Completely okay. You take all the time you need. There's no rush." "Okay." Nora hugged him. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, Nora. More than anything." After she left, Thomas sat in the quiet of his office and thought about revenge. He'd gotten it. Dixie was in prison, her reputation destroyed, her freedom gone. But the real victory wasn't her punishment. The real victory was this: his daughter, healthy and healing. His marriage, stronger than before. His family, intact. Dixie had tried to destroy them, and she'd failed spectacularly. Sometimes, Thomas thought, the best revenge is simply living well. A year after the trial, Nora's therapist declared her ready to step down to maintenance sessions, once a month instead of weekly. It was a milestone worth celebrating. Thomas took the family to the coast for a weekend, staying in a beach house that overlooked the Pacific. Nora had never seen the ocean before, and her face when she first glimpsed the endless blue horizon made every hardship worthwhile. They built sandcastles, flew kites, collected shells. At sunset, Thomas and Nora walked along the shore while Shelby read on the porch. "The ocean is so big," Nora said, holding Thomas's hand. "It makes me feel small." "In a bad way?" "No, in a good way. Like my problems are small too." Thomas smiled. "That's very wise. Dr. Chun says I'm resilient." "What does that mean?" "It means you're strong. You went through something terrible, and you're still here, still fighting, still growing. That takes courage." Nora was quiet for a moment, watching the waves. "I'm glad I didn't jump, Daddy. I'm glad the lady talked me down." "Me too, sweetheart. Every single day, me too. Sometimes I still hear Grandma's voice in my head, telling me I'm not wanted. But then I remember you and Mom, and how you guys fought for me. And the voice gets quieter. It'll keep getting quieter," Thomas promised. "Until one day, you won't hear it at all." They walked back to the beach house as the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. Shelby had dinner ready, fish tacos and fresh fruit. They ate on the porch, sharing the best and worst parts of their day, a family tradition they'd started in therapy. That night, after Nora was asleep, Thomas and Shelby sat on the beach with a bottle of wine. "I never thought we'd make it here," Shelby admitted. "After everything that happened, I thought our family was broken forever." "It was broken," Thomas said. "But broken things can be repaired. Sometimes they're stronger for it." "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me for letting her do what she did?" Thomas considered the question honestly. "I think I'm working on it. The same way Nora's working on forgiving Dixie. It takes time." "Fair enough." Shelby leaned against his shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on us." "I couldn't. You're my family. All of you." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the waves crash against the shore, each lost in their own thoughts. Thomas thought about the man he'd been a year ago, desperate, helpless, watching his daughter slip away. He'd felt powerless then, trapped in a situation he couldn't control. But he'd learned something important. Power isn't about controlling everything. It's about protecting what matters, standing firm when the world tries to break you, and fighting back when someone threatens those you love. Dixie had underestimated him. She'd seen a quiet engineer who spent his days with blueprints and calculations, and assumed he'd be easy to destroy. She hadn't counted on a father's love, a father's fury, a father's determination to protect his child at any cost. She'd gambled everything on tearing them apart, and she'd lost. Thomas had won not through violence or cruelty, but through truth. By exposing Dixie for what she was, by refusing to stay silent, by choosing his daughter over his own comfort. The 15-year sentence wasn't enough, not really. No punishment could undo the damage Dixie had done. But it was something. Justice, imperfect but real. And more importantly, Nora was safe. That was all that mattered. "What are you thinking about?" Shelby asked. "That we're lucky," Thomas said. "Despite everything, we're incredibly lucky." "How do you figure?" "We could have lost her. We almost did. But we didn't. She's here, she's healing, and we get to be part of her life. That's not luck, that's a miracle." Shelby wiped her eyes. "When did you become so philosophical?" "Probably around the time I realized I could lose everything that mattered in an instant. It changes your perspective." They finished the wine as the moon rose over the ocean, and when they finally went inside, Thomas checked on Nora one last time. She was sleeping peacefully, no nightmares tonight, her face relaxed and young. Thomas kissed her forehead gently. "Sweet dreams, baby girl. You're safe now. Always safe." 2 years after the trial, Thomas received a letter from the prison. Dixie had been moved to a psychiatric facility after a mental health evaluation. The letter was from her, not an apology, but a rambling justification of her actions, insisting she'd only been trying to help, that Thomas had poisoned everyone against her. Thomas read it once, then burned it in the fireplace. He didn't share it with Shelby or Nora. Some things were better left unacknowledged. Nora was thriving now. She joined the robotics club at school, made new friends, brought home report cards filled with A's and B's. She'd even reconciled with some of the kids who'd bullied her after the news coverage, showing a capacity for forgiveness that humbled Thomas. She still had therapy once a month, still had moments where the old fears resurfaced. But they were moments now, not constant states of being. Shelby had started law school, finally pursuing the dream she'd abandoned when Nora was born. Thomas supported her completely, adjusted his work schedule to be home when she needed to study. They'd become a team, truly a team, in ways they hadn't been before. On Nora's 13th birthday, Thomas took her on a father-daughter camping trip, something they'd started doing annually. They hiked to a clearing in the mountains, set up tent, built a fire. As they roasted marshmallows, Nora said, "Can I ask you something weird?" "Shoot. Do you think Grandma ever loved me? Really loved me?" Thomas thought about it carefully. "I think she loved the idea of you, of having a granddaughter she could control, who would need her. But real love doesn't manipulate. Real love doesn't tear people down. So no, I don't think what she felt was love. Not the way I understand it. That's sad. It is. For her, mostly. She could have had a real relationship with you, something beautiful. But she chose power over love. And now she has neither." "I feel sorry for her sometimes," Nora admitted. "Is that weird?" "No. It means you're a better person than she ever was." They watched the fire crackle, and Thomas felt overwhelming gratitude for this moment. This kid. This life they'd rebuilt from ashes. "Dad." Nora used Dad now instead of Daddy, a sign of her growing up. "Thank you for fighting for me. For not giving up. Always, Nora. Always. I know that now. I really know it." She smiled at him across the fire. "I'm glad I'm your daughter. I'm glad you're my daughter too. Best thing that ever happened to me." They stayed up late talking about everything and nothing. School, friends, her dreams of becoming an architect like him. When they finally crawled into their sleeping bags, Thomas lay awake listening to her breathe. This miracle child who'd survived and thrived despite everything. He thought about revenge again, about how he'd orchestrated Dixie's downfall. The publicity, the exposure, the systematic dismantling of her defenses until there was nowhere left to hide. Some people might call it cruel. Thomas called it justice. Because monsters shouldn't get to hide in the dark, protected by family loyalty and social niceties. Sometimes, the only way to stop a monster is to drag it into the light and let everyone see what it really is. Dixie Wright had tried to kill his daughter, emotionally and eventually physically. She'd nearly destroyed his family. She'd earned every second of her prison sentence, every bit of public shame, every lost relationship and destroyed reputation. And Thomas had made sure she got exactly what she deserved. That wasn't revenge. That was accountability. And if there was satisfaction in watching her fall, well, Thomas was only human. He'd never claimed to be a saint. The next morning, they packed up camp and hiked back to civilization. As they drove home, Nora talked excitedly about the robotics competition her team had qualified for, about the boy in her math class who'd asked her to the 8th grade dance, about normal teenage concerns that filled Thomas with joy. This was victory, not Dixie's imprisonment, though that helped. Victory was his daughter being able to think about dances and competitions instead of whether her father loved her. Victory was rebuilding what had been broken and making it stronger. Victory was this moment, this drive, this conversation. Everything else was just epilogue. 5 years after the bridge, Thomas stood in the crowd at Nora's high school graduation. She walked across the stage to accept her diploma, honor cords draped around her neck, and when she spotted him in the audience, she grinned and waved. Thomas's chest felt like it might explode with pride. After the ceremony, Nora ran over, Shelby right behind her. They took photos, made plans for the celebration dinner, laughed at the ridiculous mortarboard decorations Nora's friends had created. A woman approached, older, professional-looking. "Excuse me, are you Thomas Murray?" Thomas tensed automatically. "Yes. I'm Dr. Sarah Kim. I've been following your daughter's case since the trial. I'm writing a book about parental alienation and its long-term effects. Would you be willing to be interviewed?" Thomas glanced at Nora, who shrugged. "It's up to you, Dad." "What's the goal of the book?" Thomas asked. "To help other families recognize the signs early, before it gets to the point your family reached. To provide resources, raise awareness. Your case is one of the most extreme and well-documented I've found, but also one of the most hopeful, because Nora recovered, your family recovered. That's rare." Thomas considered it. "If it helps even one family avoid what we went through, I'm in." Dr. Kim smiled. "Thank you. I'll be in touch." After she left, Nora linked her arm through Thomas's. "Look at us, being all educational and stuff. If our nightmare can help someone else, then maybe it wasn't completely pointless," Thomas said. "It wasn't pointless," Nora said firmly. "It made us stronger. All of us." At the celebration dinner, surrounded by family and friends, Thomas made a toast. To Nora, "You've accomplished something remarkable today, but honestly, graduating high school isn't even close to your biggest achievement. Your biggest achievement is standing here, happy and whole, after everything you survived. I am in awe of you, and I'm honored to be your father." Nora's eyes glistened, but she smiled. "Dad, you're going to make me cry into my pasta." Everyone laughed, and the moment passed into normal family celebration. But later, when they got home, Nora found Thomas in his office. "Hey, Dad, that thing you said at dinner, did you mean it?" "Every word." "I'm proud of me too," Nora said. "I didn't think I would be. For the longest time, I was just ashamed of what happened, of being weak enough to believe Grandma's lies. But Dr. Chin helped me understand that being manipulated doesn't make you weak. Fighting back makes you strong." "You fought back," Thomas agreed. "You fought so hard." "We all did." Nora hugged him. "I'm glad we won." "Me too, sweetheart." "Me too." After she left, Thomas pulled out an old photo, the one from Nora's hospital bed, the one he'd kept hidden in his desk drawer. In it, she looked small and broken, hooked up to monitors, her face pale. He looked at that photo sometimes, not to torture himself, but to remember how close he'd come to losing her, to remember why he'd fought so hard. Then he pulled out a recent photo, Nora at the robotics competition, holding a trophy, grinning at the camera with her whole team around her. Same girl, different worlds. Thomas put both photos back in the drawer and closed it. The past was important, but it didn't define them anymore. They'd survived. They'd healed. They'd won. And Dixie Wright was just a cautionary tale now, a monster relegated to the past where she belonged. Thomas turned off his office light and went to join his family downstairs, where Shelby and Nora were watching a movie and arguing good-naturedly about whether the physics in the action scenes were realistic. He sat between them on the couch, and they automatically shifted to make room, Nora leaning against his shoulder like she used to when she was small. This, Thomas thought, this is everything. Not revenge. Not justice. Not victory in court. Just this. Family. Love. Safety. Home. Everything else was just the price he'd paid to get here. And he'd pay it again 1,000 times over without hesitation. Because in the end, the only thing that mattered was protecting the people you loved. Everything else was just details. And Thomas Murray had always been very, very good with details. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.